It's coming. Oh, sorry to keep everyone waiting. It's been a slight panic. For some reason, my Instagram setup, you can tell I'm new to Instagram, wasn't set up as it should be. But anyway, we're all here. Oh, phew. Anyway, good to see that some people have tuned in, and great. Can you see me? Oh, it says you can't see me on Instagram. Hang on. Oh, goodness me. You can tell that tech is not my thing. I think I'm going to have to call my husband. Jonathan?
Yes.
Why am I not connected to the Instagram? I've had to use my husband's phone because it wasn't working, so I'm not familiar. So he's saying not connected. Why can't they see me? Do I press that? It says oh, now of course my internet's not working with the phone very well. That's why that is. Anyway, this is all turning into a bit of a disaster. Right, so shall we get on with it? So, welcome everybody, and apologies to our Instagram viewers that you can't see me, but you can hear me, I understand. So thanks very much to the King's Head for inviting me to be involved today. That's wonderful, and I'm grateful for that. And it's a good opportunity to connect and offer moral support to everybody at this particular time, which are quite difficult. So welcome everyone. So who am I? Well, my name's Deborah Edgington, and I'm a freelance director, and I'm also the co-founder of the 10 by 10 New Writing Festival, which I set up with my husband in 2008. So I met Shadi about 2 years ago when she entered a play into the Chesil Theatre, and she was one of the winners. So what am I passionate about? Well, I'm really passionate obviously about new writing. I like discovering voices, the opportunity to discover voices and to give them a platform, because remember when this 10 by 10 started in 2008, there wasn't a lot around for emerging writers. So it was sort of a bit of a trailblazing initiative, I suppose, at that time. Nowadays, of course, there are a lot more things going on. There's a lot more scratch nights and competitions and so on. So there's more opportunity now than there was back in 2008. I'm also really keen on 20th century writers. I'm a great fan of Tennessee Williams and Athol Fugard, and I also like Chekhov and Ibsen, and particularly like the older writers if you can give a sort of a modern twist to their work. And I'm very interested in movement and physical theatre. So when I directed The Seagull, I was very keen to incorporate physical movement, and I'd like to do a lot more of that. And I don't know if any of you saw on the BBC 4 the oh gosh, sorry, on BBC 4 on Sunday there was a wonderful performance of Reviser, and if you haven't seen it and you are interested in movement, I would highly recommend that. So how did I get started in the industry? Well, late. A bit like today, late. I joined the Nuffield Theatre in 2004. I was the development officer, and I was there till 2013, and during that time I was promoted to head of fundraising. I joined as I said, the fundraiser, and then got more involved. Well, not more involved, I was promoted, and I made lots of good friends, and it was a fantastic experience sharing an open plan office with other creators. And I think by a process of osmosis, I was just absorbing all this creativity, and obviously I was seeing the day-to-day workings of a regional theatre, and being part of the senior management Obviously it was a huge insight, so it was an invaluable experience. And I think one of the best things was also seeing so much theatre I wouldn't have ordinarily have seen, and also the visiting companies that came, international visiting companies. I mean, Headlong came when it first sort of started with Rupert Gould, Robert Icke and Natalie Abrahami and Blanche McIntyre all came at the early part of their career to the Nuffield Theatre. So, it was a wonderful, wonderful place to be. And I worked very closely with the artistic director of obviously with the fundraising side of things. I'd wheel them out to businesses and we'd do talks and and that sort of thing. So that was in 2004, but prior to that, I'd also done other things. I worked in the charity sector. I worked for the British Red Cross and for a children's leukemia charity. I also trained as a nurse, and I also did a business degree, so quite an eclectic beginning before stepping into the world of theatre. And we all say we are defined by our experiences, and that's true of everybody. And I think with all creatives, whether they're directors, writers, and actors, we all draw on what's happened before, and that's where we find um, our sort of what's the word I'm trying to find? How we can portray and get into the characters and tell stories, and that's what it's all about. So my experiences, certainly in the charity sector and the nursing, has really fed into my directing work. And it's probably really made me very, very fascinated on why I love plays about complex characters, and particularly of Gaines, Tennessee Williams, who is a master at really getting under the skin of his characters. So I'm interested in the human condition, and as I said, so how did I get to where I am now? Well, obviously, working at the Nuffield Theatre, I was heading towards becoming a director, although I didn't know that at the time. So it was very much a desk job, although out and about talking to people. But the sort of turning point was when I was asked if I'd like to direct a play. Now, obviously, I'd been producing the 10 by 10 New Writing Festival, but I'd not really thought about directing before, and I'd worked backstage. And I'd obviously had the opportunity also to sneak into rehearsals and to techs at the Nuffield Theatre. So I was sort of beginning, I think, subconsciously to understand what directing was about. So I thought, yeah, I'd really like to direct a play. And the play I'd like to direct is A Streetcar Named Desire. And I know it sounds a bit glib, but it really was a turning point. And I thought, you know what, I'm not getting any younger, so it's now or never. So my advice to anybody out there who thinks, oh, I'm too old to do that, no, definitely not. You're never too late, just do it, have a go. And I have to say, I really must do a shout out to Kirsty Davis, um, who was the artistic director of Forest Forge at the time, back in 2013, which was when I directed my first play. So I've only been directing 7 years, and it's actually 7 years this very week. So, I mean, what better anniversary, celebrate the anniversary, than to see the NT Lives and Young Vic's production of A Streetcar. It's brought so many memories back. It's been amazing. So I swapped my desk job to try and become a director. And as I said, Kirsty Davis was incredibly supportive and full of encouragement. Some of my other colleagues, on the other hand, thought I was mad, completely mad, to want to go into this so late. And I remember talking to Katie Mitchell once, and she was fascinated that anyone would want to come into the profession at my stage in life, because she started, obviously, as most people do, when they're in their 20s, graduating from university or drama school. and obviously there are other routes into directing, but people tend to be younger. And what she said to me was, as she was approaching her 40s, she was finding it more and more difficult to get work, whereas she was seeing her older male colleagues who were still directing and taking on artistic directorships of buildings much, much later. And so that was part of the reason why she went to Germany. She felt she had to reinvent herself to get the work. So anyone as mad as me who wants to come into the profession. But for me, it was about, well, I didn't want to live regretting that I hadn't done it. So, and if it didn't work, it didn't work. And I think when you're older, there's also a sense of you're not doing it to please other people, you're doing it for yourself. And I had nothing to lose. So that was my turning point in 2013. So after that, I did do a short course at Central because I felt, well, I need to just get a little bit of theory under my belt. And I'm glad I did that for two reasons. Partly because I had a whistle stop tour of other methodologies and learned a little bit more about other directors and their processes. But also, I met Roger Mortimer, who was also on the course. And a little bit later, he got in touch with me and he said, I'm going to be putting a play on in London. Do you want to be involved? And that was Muswell Hill, that was at the White Bear in 2014. And I found it a really humbling experience, actually, um, auditioning actors who were so experienced. And I thought, who am I to be sitting here and making a decision on whether or not they're going to get a job? I found it hugely humbling. But, I sort of swallowed my pride, and we cast the play, and it was a success. And Jez Bond came to see it and loved it and said, oh, I'd like to take this to the Park Theatre. So that was my partnership with Roger and Two Sheds. And we did other things as well. And I think one of the highlights was My Children, My Africa, uh, by Athol Fugard, another fantastic writer. And if you don't know his work, I would recommend you look him up. So what does my day-to-day work look like now? Well, like most of us, theatre-wise, not very much. I was delighted to be invited to get involved today and to have a chat with all of you. But other than that, not very much at all. Doing lots of reading. Um, and the last piece of theatre that I did was actually an opera last October. My first opera, La Boheme, and it was a challenge, I can say. The world of opera is not one that I know a lot about, but I certainly learnt more and knew more by the end of it all. So my subject, so the reason we're all here today is to talk about 10 by 10 and how it came about. Well, as you know, I'd been working for 4 years by this point at the Nuffield Theatre, and my colleague John Burgess was the script editor, and he ran a writers group at the theatre. Now, John, if you don't know him, has a wealth of experience. He helped to found the National Theatre Studio back in 1984, so that was the experimental arm of the National Theatre. And then he was head of new writing of the National Theatre between 1989 and 1994, so he had a lot of experience. Anyway, so he ran this course, and it was a 2-year course, and as part of that course, the writers had to write a 10-minute play, a radio play, and a full-length play. And the members of the group were hoping that the Nuffield would be able to put their 10-minute plays on, but unfortunately that wasn't to be, what with the theatre being fully booked and programmed, and there was obviously a cost issue. And my husband was also a member of this writers, so there was a bit of a pincer movement going on from John Burgess and my husband saying, well, you're involved with the Chesil Theatre in Winchester, which is a delightful medieval 75-seater theatre in Winchester, and it's home to the Winchester Dramatic Society. Do you think they'll put it on? And I was about to become the chairman. So of course, I was thought, oh yes, I think this would be a really, really good idea. And of course, I was fully aware through my husband's experience how difficult it was to get your plays performed or up on their feet. Even if it wasn't a full performance, it was really hard. And that is such a valuable, valuable exercise for any writer, because then they could see that the words they wrote on the page, they either work on the stage, or they may not. You might realise that the entrances don't work, the entrances and exits, the scene changes may not work. You might want to change the order of the scenes themselves because you realise the structure isn't quite right. So it's hugely invaluable. So I said to my husband, well, I can't sort of put this forward really. I think this has to come from you. So he had to pitch it to the Chesil Exec Board, and thankfully they all said yes, they thought it was a good idea. But I think there was still a little bit of reservation because they'd never done anything like this before. So it was quite low, low key. So we put on it was, as it so happened, 10 writers in the group. So we put on their 10 plays, and it was a huge success. And afterwards, people kept coming up and saying, wow, this is great. Why can't I send in a play? Can I do something similar? And so the idea of turning it into a competition sort of bore fruit. And so that's what we did. So it's a sort of a 10-month project. So we didn't do it every year, but the next time we did it in 2010, we opened it up to Hampshire. And it just got bigger and bigger. So every 2 years, it just got bigger, as I said, and it grew and grew. And I've got a few props. So these are, I don't know if you can see them, these were the initial, what are they called? Flyers, that's the word I'm looking for, that went out. That was one that we did in 2014. And just, let me see, I was going to show you these programs just to show. So this was the first one we did. This is the program for the first show in 2008, which is, as I said, low key, low budget, very, very low budget, no budget at all, in fact. And one of the actresses was Roxy Dunn. I don't know if any of you know Roxy Dunn. She's had a lot of success with her playwriting, and she's had things on at the Vaults and the Edinburgh Festivals. You may know her. So she was one of our actors back in 2008. In 2010, wow, we had a better program. I don't know if you can see that. Shiny paper, still black and white, extra pages. And then in 2012, oh my goodness, well, we've gone to colour by that point, so people were really taking it seriously. And then 2014, we are into a really snazzy program. And this person here, Kirsty Applebaum, who wrote Commander Mulberry, has actually become a very, very successful children's novelist. So although she's not gone into playwriting, her writing has obviously become very successful. And Good Luck, Commander Mulberry was in fact one of my favourite plays. And then in 2016, we had a David Bowie themed event. So all the writers were asked to write a play that was inspired by David Bowie. And here, this is a picture actually from 2014. I don't know if you can see it. And Ian McKellen came and visited. And there's some photographs here at the bottom of some of the shows. So anyway, so as I said, it just grew and grew. So how does it kind of work? Well, it's a 10-month project, so we set the date of the festival and we work backwards can't see anything. Yes, I'm sorry, Instagram. I'm really sorry. I cannot get it to go live. So I do apologise. You can hear me, I understand. So I do apologise that the screen is back. So perhaps go to Facebook. I'm so sorry. So we set the date of the festival and work backwards, and then launch. There's 10 months from the date is the launch date, and we promote it heavily through local press, through writers groups, contact writers groups, previous winners and writers who have submitted plays. How else do we do it? Social media, radio interviews, and also what else was I going to say? Yes, drama departments, writing departments from the two universities locally, so Winchester University and Solent University. So that's how we go about with the promotion. Now, what's the next thing? Oh yes, the other thing I was going to talk about was sorry, I'm just trying to find. With all the hoo-ha earlier, not being able to get Instagram, unfortunately I didn't sort of get everything as I should. I can't remember what the next question was asked about. But when we are marking the... sorry, I'm just... Oh, here we are. There we go. So yes, so when we are reading the plays, we, obviously there are things we're looking at, so we get the readers together, select the readers, well, before that there's the brief and guidelines. So we have a theme which you've obviously gathered from the programs. So we've had 150, we've had David Bowie, we've had Hidden Worlds, we've had a Shakespeare theme, and so on and so forth. It's free to enter, and the plays must be no longer than 10 minutes and a maximum of 4 actors and minimum props and staging. And importantly, all the scripts are read anonymously. I think that's really important for fairness, because I think if you do see a name, you might know who that person is and what they've written. You can possibly Google them, and I'm sure that must influence, as much as you try that it doesn't, it must influence your sort of decision making. So all the scripts are read anonymously. So the readers, we find the readers, and they all have a different level of expertise within theatre and writing. And for instance, in 2018 we had Dirk Maggs. I don't know if any of you know of Dirk Maggs' work. He's an award-winning writer and director across all mediums, but principally for his work on radio, and in Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and various other Radio 4 adaptations, Neil Gaiman's work. And he's currently working on, what's he working on? Sandman. Then we have Cecily O'Neill. She has a local theatre and is a writer. And Cressida Pever, whose name you may well know. So Cressida was one of our winners in 2016 with her play, The Glass Spider, I think it was called. And she was one of the readers for 2018. And then we had an academic, Dr. Helen Grime from the Winchester University, and she's a former script reader for The Orange Tree as well. So then we go on to the marking sheet. So what we do is we sort of look at the play, and obviously we have a numbers and title, and we ask them all to write a synopsis, and then we have an area for notes, and then we have like a marking scheme, and then we make a note of how many cast members are in their play, what their ages are, and what the gender ratio is, and if there are any specific props that we need to look. And on this example there is a prop for a hypodermic needle. And then on the next column we have sound effects. So in one of the plays there was a gunshot, and then in the final column is the setting. So there is outside clearing, and in the next play is an alleyway. So we do a long list, and we announce the writers in the long list, and then we narrow that down to a short list of about 20. And then when we start to select the final 10, then other things come into play, because by this point we know these are really good plays. You know, they're well written, and so we know that, but other things come into play. Sort of they're more nuanced, because at the end of the day, the festival is about putting on a well balanced program of plays. So we don't want particularly have 10 plays that are all about homelessness. So we need a real balance. So those sort of things start to come into play. But before that, the sort of things we're looking for is, and I know this is a 10-minute play, but some of the things you're looking at in a 10-minute play obviously apply to the full-length play. So these are still sorts of questions we would ask to ourselves about the play. What do you think the play is about, literally and metaphorically? Do we like the play? What are the strengths and the problems with regards to character, structure and action? What does the protagonist want? What are the themes that are coming through? Are they strong? How weak are they? And a good exercise for a reader is actually to give a plot summary, so that they know how well they understand the play. Is it authentic? Is it truthful? And is there a sense of time and place? What is the form, and is it interesting? And is there a distinctive writer's voice? And that can come through even in a 10-minute play. You can recognize somebody's style of writing. So those are sorts of things we look at. And one of the mistakes some writers, sort of newly starting off, they put a lot of exposition in. And obviously what you really want is for the dialogue to move the action forward rather than putting too much explanation. So that's something that we look at. So anyway, so now the winners have been announced. So we've decided our final 10, and they've been announced. So that's really when the hard work starts for me. So I have to find 10 directors who would like to take on one of the plays, and they get sent all of the plays to read, and then they make a decision. They give their 3 preferences, and hopefully everyone chooses a different one. Occasionally directors will choose the same one, and then I have to very tactfully negotiate that so that they get the play they want. And then we do the casting, and that could be up to 40 actors, and I will oversee all of that, because I don't necessarily want an actor to go into one play if I think perhaps they might well be better suited in another play that one of the directors hasn't probably taken into account. So they organise their rehearsals, the director with the actors, and they take place often in their own homes, or they sort out their own rehearsal space. And then I will rotor in a 30-minute tech for each play 2 nights before the festival date. So there'll be 5 plays on the Thursday and 5 plays on the Friday. And then on the Saturday morning, because the festival's over a weekend, I don't know if I said that earlier, and they have 4 performances. But on the Saturday morning we will do a dress, and that's usually the first time that the whole company come together. And obviously with 10 plays back to back, the technical crew, the backstage crew, we would have choreographed the getting on and off of each play to precision, exactly where the props are going to go when they go off stage, and who's going to be carrying them on and so forth. So that's the morning of the the performances, and as I said, we do 4, so Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, Sunday afternoon, and Sunday evening. Right, so sorry, I have just talked at you. Um, so let's have a look. Have we got any questions that anyone would like to ask me? Anything specific? It's great to see we've got some not older, but mature people tuning in, and yes, I'm pleased that even if I can do it and at a later stage come into a completely new new career, I suppose, if for want of a better word, then anybody can. Right, any questions? What have we got? Yes, any questions on... I can't see, yes. Right, okay. So that's really how 10 by 10 works. We have gone over time. After the 2018 festival, I've been doing it for, as I said, it was 10 years in total. Obviously, there were only 6 actual events. And because of the time it took, it meant I couldn't really do other things on the years that the festival was taking place. And because we'd always followed the same format, I decided to call it a day with regards to the 10 by 10 in that current form, I hasten to add. So I'm hoping that 10 by 10 will be reincarnated, for want of another word, reincarnated, but perhaps with a different form. We were trailblazers back in 2008, and I'd like to think that we could be trailblazers perhaps in the forthcoming years. So do watch this space. However, that said, the Chesil Theatre has decided to continue doing a 10 by 10, or well, it's not so much a 10 by 10 because it's not 10 by 10, but they're going to do a similar playwriting competition which they've recently launched. So if you are interested in submitting a script for that, then do go onto their website, which is Chesil Theatre, what is it, chesiltheatre.org.uk, and have a look at, download their rules. And if you are interested in contacting me and you'd like to send me a play to have a read, or like some feedback on a play, you can go to my website, which is deborahedgingtondirector.com, and contact me. Can you see that? So it's deborahedgingtondirector.com, and contact me through the contact page. And I'd love to hear from you. But yes, my sort of final word is thank you very much for listening. Thank you for joining us. And I know what I was going to say. I don't know if you're probably all familiar with this book, but if you are interested and want to delve even deeper about playwriting, I highly recommend Stephen Jeffrey's playwriting book, and the podcast on the Royal Court that Stephen Simons has done with various writers. Definitely listen to those. And don't forget that KHT Online is every weekday at 1 p.m. So do check the King's Head Theatre website and the socials. And thank you very, very much. Are there any more questions? Let's just have one more look. Any advice for an actor director who trained in late 30s, has taught acting performance, leap into acting? So Liz has asked, is there any advice for an actor director who trained in her late 30s, has taught acting and performance since, and now looking to take a leap into acting directing? Well, I can't really advise on the acting, but with regards to directing, the best bit of advice I had from Kirsty Davis, as I said, from Forest Forge, um, said just do it. Don't talk about it, don't think about it, just go out and do it. And I know that's easier said than done, and particularly in this current climate. Um, but if you get some friends together and just put on a play, hire the village hall. I think the best way of learning is by doing. So I would highly recommend that, and that was the best advice she could give me. So thank you all very, very much for listening. Um, and I will just say, I didn't say this at the beginning, and I did ask Shadi if I could mention it, but Shadi was also one of our winners of the 10 by 10 last year. And she wrote a fantastic play called The Worst of the Worst that was set in a prison and had lots of tension, lots of repetition and good rhythm, and obviously made it through to the final 10. And I was grateful to Shadi for getting in contact with me again today and asking me to be involved. So thank you again very, very much, and hope to hear from you or see you someone in the future. Thank you. Thank you all. Bye. Right.